Hello everyone, BORG Dexter here, and in this video I will talk about Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater, a remake of the original Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater, released in 2004 or 2005, depending on the region in the world, on the PlayStation 2. It's important to say that this game is, narratively speaking, a prequel to Metal Gear Solid 1, 2, 4, and 5, as well as the Metal Gear games on the PSP. This is my second favorite Metal Gear game, the first one on the PlayStation 1 being my number one Metal Gear game. Metal Gear is tactical espionage action, quote unquote, as every title says, meaning you will mostly sneak around, trying to avoid detection and playing it slow, with some action-heavy sequences in each game. You take on the role of Naked Snake, or Snake, not to be confused with Snake from Metal Gear Solid 1, 2 or 4. This is the father of Snake from those games. You start an operation called the Virtuous Mission, whose objective is to retrieve Sokolov, a Soviet scientist responsible for developing a sort of tank that would be capable of launching nukes from anywhere in the Soviet Union to anywhere in the USA. Sokolov was already retrieved by the West to West Germany, but the Soviet Union used the Cuban Missile Crisis, a real historical event inserted in the game, to force the West to give him back to the Soviets. In exchange, the Soviets pulled out their missiles from Cuba, avoiding a potential nuclear war. The West now wants Sokolov back in their clutches before the work on the tank is complete and put into mass production. Snake is on a top secret mission here, but he is backed up by a team of supporters via the radio, experts in various relevant areas. One of these experts is a woman called the Boss, who is the only one besides Snake that is actually on the ground. The Boss is Snake's mentor, who taught him everything he knows and built him into the soldier he is today. Their close and special relationship is apparent from the start. After some time, Snake retrieves Sokolov and is on the way to exfiltrate when the Boss shows up, revealing that she is defecting to the Soviet Union and has brought 2 Davy Crockets, which is a real-life tactical nuke that was never actually used in any war. It was only tested, I believe, as a gift to her Soviet hosts. This is also the first time you are introduced to the Cobra unit, which will be the bosses you will encounter later throughout the game. Snake is thrown off a bridge, barely surviving the fall. Sokolov is kidnapped again. Man, this guy's like a ping-pong ball going back and forth. And Colonel Volgin, a member of the Groove faction, launches the Davy Crockett at the area from which you retrieved Sokolov. This causes a diplomatic incident between the US and the USSR, since the Soviets have detected the aircraft from which Snake jumped into the mission area a bit before the tactical nuke went off, and the Boss, an American soldier, comes into suspicion of actually being inserted by the US government, rather than actually defecting to the Soviets of her own volition. All this brings the US and USSR on the brink of nuclear conflict yet again. Snake is then sent on a second mission to bring back Sokolov, hopefully for good this time, destroy the Shagohod, kill Colonel Volgin, as requested by the Khrushchev faction of the USSR that is currently in power in the country, and the hardest mission of all, Snake has to kill the Boss, to prove that she isn't an agent ordered by the US government to infiltrate the Soviets. Metal Gear games were always cutscene and story heavy, but make no mistake, there is very interesting gameplay here too. In this review, I will not focus too much on the difference between the original and this remake, partly because the game is largely the exact same. The story wasn't changed in any way, which is a good thing, and the gameplay has a few quality of life changes, which I will mention later. Okay, let's start with the most obvious change first, the graphics. Suffice to say, the game, made in the Unreal Engine 5, looks great. Even though I played in performance mode, which focuses on FPS over graphical fidelity, the game still looked great. The characters' faces are more expressive, which helped greatly in conveying the emotions in cutscenes. On uniforms, you can actually see they are made of actual fabric. The texture of the fabric is so detailed. The environments also do look better than the original, but in my opinion the level of upgrade is less noticeable than the characters' looks, but the environments overall still look pretty good. Particular praise must be made to the level of detail Konami has provided in this game. This is most readily apparent in the uniforms. As time goes on, you will start to notice rips and tears on the uniforms if you use them often enough. Gunshot holes are also visible. Burns leave permanent marks on the uniforms. If you crawl on the ground a lot, like I did, you will notice signs of wear and the color fading on the front side of the uniform you use. If you crawl in mud, you better believe you will look like a pig that rolled around in it for a while. And even fallen leaves will stick to Snake as he skulks around, which will promptly fall off from Snake as he gets up and walks, or you shake him around in the survival menu. I gotta say, also Snake's face paint looks great, since it doesn't look just like a flat paint on his face, but rather you can see it has texture. Excellent detail. Snake's body is also a canvas that will be painted by the injuries you sustain during your covert work. Cuts, gunshot wounds, stitches, etc. all are visible. For example, as soon as I started to play the game, I noticed Snake had some scratches on his face, and at first I was confused, but then I remembered that he hit some branches while landing in the jungle, hence the scratches. When going into X-ray mode, you will be able to see lodged bullets and arrows and broken bones and stuff, which can look pretty dreadful. The various animals you encounter in the game also look good, ranging from various amphibians, snakes, and some four-legged creatures, with various fruits and the occasional human-made food like instant noodles, calorie mates, and military-issued rations spread about. So, what is gameplay actually comprised of? Like I said, you are a solo operative on a top-secret mission, so it would suit you best to play stealthily, avoiding or eliminating enemies covertly as you go along. A big part of remaining hidden is camouflage. Camo consists of a uniform you are wearing and the face paint you apply to Snake. Whether you are crawling, crouching, or walking upright also contributes to the camo index displayed in the HUD. In one of the minor quality of life changes, you can now change camo via a quick menu that puts up a screen that changes to the camo pattern you have chosen for a moment, and when the screen goes down, Snake will be in the uniform and face paint you have chosen. Bushes and leaves also help you remain hidden, and if you are out in the open, it will negatively affect your visibility, of course. As far as stealthy weapons go, you are equipped with a tranquilizer gun that has a suppressor and a knife, and later you can acquire a sniper rifle that uses tranquilizer rounds. Suppressors will wear down over time and become useless, and they are limited in availability, so use them sparingly whenever you can. So, you can put enemies to sleep from a distance using the tranq gun. Hitting enemies in the head will put them out instantly. One of the bigger changes is the range of the tranq gun. In the remake, the range is much shorter and has a big round drop-off, leading you to a situation where you cannot snipe enemies with the tranq gun from far away, forcing you to get closer to the enemies to hit them. You can also shoot multiple darts into enemies if you cannot get a headshot, but I found the ammo for the tranq gun a bit scarce, so I would advise getting closer and aiming for the head. Another option is to grab enemies from behind and choke them out. It's worth pointing out that knocked out enemies, represented with stars around their head, wake up much quicker than sleeping enemies, with Z's over their heads. Sneaking up on enemies and holding them up will enable you to shake them down and get items from them. Each enemy can give you multiple items, bear in mind. When you are done robbing guards of all their worldly possessions, you can grab them and interrogate them. Now this is interesting. This can provide you with various information, such as where you can find some items, frequencies for fire support and healing radio stations, which play songs that heal Snake's stamina. Then you have frequencies for calling off the alert status, which can be pretty useful, and some more interesting facts like not eating vultures that feasted on human flesh. There you try do that. I must say that sneaking up on enemies and holding them up by pointing a weapon at them was a bit clunky for me, as oftentimes they will just hear me, even though I use the slow crawl when near enemies and they just turn around and see me, leading me to melee them quickly and knock them out. The best way then to hold up and interrogate enemies is to wake them after they are first stunned or put to sleep. You can wake them up by kicking them, and then shake them down and interrogate them. If you are spotted, guards will yell for help, and if the guard that spotted you has a radio, he will likely yell for help, maybe shoot off a few rounds, and then run to nearby cover to call for backup. In another nice detail touch present here as well as in the original, you can shoot and destroy radios to prevent backup from being called in, somewhat containing the alert. It's worth noticing that you can destroy radios even with tranquilizer darts. If you fail to prevent the radio man from calling in backup, you will face additional troops which often carry shields flooding the area. If you do decide to go Rambo style, there is no shortage of loud weapons to choose from. A sniper, an LMG, a lethal pistol, a shotgun, 2 assault rifles, an RPG, grenades, both of the lethal and non-lethal kind, claymore mines, the Scorpion SMG. Pick your tool of carnage and go wild. I must say though, the game certainly favors the stealthy approach, since despite the wide arsenal of lethal weapons, enemies are not too easy to deal with in combat, and ammo will dry up rather quickly if you engage in open combat often. Where you do get to flex your weapon arsenal is in boss fights and scripted action-heavy sections. The action-heavy sections are present towards the end of the game and serve as fun slices of combat that are welcome, and these sections always look great, while giving you something to do in these spectacles. The boss fights, I must say, are the highlight of the game. If you are an old player and know the best strategies to defeat the bosses, your enjoyment will be a bit diminished, but still fun. But if you are playing the game for the first time, I envy you. Pretty much each boss has a fun way to be fought and defeated. Like I said, the Cobra unit members, who fought on the Allies' side against the Nazis in World War II, will serve as boss fights here. For the most part, there will be other boss fights. Each member of the unit is called after an emotion that he brings into battle. So we have the fear, the pain, the end. Okay, the end is not an emotion, but there is an explanation why the old man is called that, and it's not really too hidden. Then we have the fury, the sorrow, and the joy, which is boss. As you can see, Kojima's original naming convention did not start with the Death Stranding. You can deal with most bosses in a lethal and non-lethal way, and you will be rewarded with a new uniform for each boss you defeat in a non-lethal way. Defeating bosses in a non-lethal way means depleting their stamina rather than their health bar. This is achieved by shooting them with tranq rounds, and they will also deplete some stamina during the fight itself, because of the fight's exertion. Some boss fights, like the Fury, are more straightforward, but some battles like the End and the Fear have very neat tricks to it. A certain quote-unquote boss fight even takes into account how many enemies you have killed in the game up to that point, and adds a nice gameplay twist that relates to that number. You'll see. Some bosses can even be killed outside their respective boss fights. If you know, you know. Defeating bosses and outsmarting guards is only half the mission. As you trudge through Soviet jungles and even enclosed spaces like military bases and research facilities, you will have to sustain yourself, keeping your stamina bar filled. If your stamina gets low, your aim will become erratic and unstable, your stomach will start to grumble, and any injuries you sustain will heal slower. If you are lucky, you will be able to feed yourself with military rations issued by the Soviet military. If you are really lucky, you will be able to feast on instant noodles you find in food stores throughout the game, or calorie mates. But the sad reality is that most of the time you will have to live off the land, eating fruits, mushrooms, rats, snakes, crocodiles, spiders, frogs, basically anything that isn't hanging from a tree or not walking on 2 legs. You can capture up to 3 animals by tranquilizing them. This means that these animals will never go bad, preserving them until you decide to eat them. Bear in mind that some bigger animals like crocodiles and goats cannot be captured alive and will, along with any other animals you have killed, have to be eaten before they go bad. Spoiled food is marked with a fly icon, and if eaten, you will throw up and lose stamina. Captured animals, if dangerous, can also be thrown at enemies, which will result them in being attacked or poisoned by a venomous snake, for example. The same goes for you. If you are bit by a venomous snake or spider, you will have to go to the cure menu and remedy the situation. Right, the cure menu. Inevitably, you will sustain some injuries. These can be gunshot wounds, poison, burns, cuts, broken bones, etc. Each injury demands different medical supplies to be removed. All medical supplies can be found in the environment or taken from guards that are shaken down. For example, broken bones will require a splinter and a bandage, while burns need an ointment applied and also need to be bandaged. One thing that I always found funny is the fact that the order in which the medical supplies are applied is irrelevant. For example, if you are cut, you can bandage the wound first, stitch it up, then disinfect it, which is not exactly realistic. However, I must say I do not mind that this is the way it is, as sometimes, even with a healing system as it is right now, it can be annoying in some cases where you might sustain injuries that require healing often. You know, it can be tiring to go into a menu often to address the issue, which, if it required for the application of medical supplies to be realistic, would only be more annoying. You can also view the character model of Snake with all the injuries visible, like gunshot wounds or cuts. Internal injuries can be seen by activating the X-ray view, which can be used to see lodged bullets in the flesh and broken bones. Very cool. As far as environments go, at first you will roam about open jungles mostly, but will eventually make your way to closed spaces, including warehouses, research facility, and towards the end Grozny Grad. Later in the game, a massive base that houses soldiers, tanks, and has research facilities. At some point you will reach a small military outpost with a helicopter stationed there. In another example of cool, detailed gameplay mechanics, if you blow up the chopper stationed there with TNT, that chopper will not appear in the mountainous area that you will reach later. Very neat. Also, if you destroy the food storage shed with TNT, soldiers will eventually go hungry, and you will be able to hear their bellies rumbling with hunger. Cool details. Honestly speaking, I had no heart to make the soldiers go hungry, so I opted not to destroy their food stores on this playthrough, even though I did destroy these food stores on my previous playthroughs years before. Man, I must be growing soft with age. No, not that kind of soft. You know what I mean, come on. As far as enemy variety goes, soldiers look different but act mostly the same. You will face regular grunts, officers, members of Ocelot's unit, and backup units equipped with shotguns and shields. Some enemies are more unique and appear only in certain areas or points of the game, such as soldiers riding motorcycles with a sidecar, or soldiers piloting flying platforms, which are based on real-life prototypes. Where more variety in enemies can be found is weapons. Most will carry AKs, officers carry pistols, backup units can be equipped with shotguns, and I even found a guy that wielded an RPG, found him in the mountains. Now I'd like to dedicate a few words on controlling Snake. You can choose to play with the commands from the original from way back when, or play with modern controls, so to speak. I chose the latter. I gotta say that Snake can still be a bit clunky to control, but less so with the more modern updated commands. I also don't like the cover system because it makes Snake super sticky and he often sticks to nearby cover when I didn't want him to. I will now take a moment to talk a bit about the characters. First off, there is our protagonist John, codename Naked Snake or simply Snake. He is a student of the boss, a legendary soldier of World War II. Snake is still rough around the edges a bit, but he's very hardy, resourceful and intelligent. He shares a deep connection with the boss, a mentor-student relationship that surpasses a romantic or a friendly one, and looks up to her. Other people on Snake's team include Major Tom, later called Zero after the Virtuous mission, real name unknown, who will be the man in command. He mostly tells you where you need to go and what your objective is when you call him. Then there is Dr. Clark, call sign Paramedic, which will act as a medical advisor for Snake in the game and will play an important role later on in the Metal Gear lore. She will also provide you with info on the local flora and fauna, and there is a sort of a running gag in the game, where Snake always ends up asking how a critter Paramedic gives info on tastes. She will also act as a contact that allows you to save the game manually, and each time you do, she will tell you of a movie she has seen and describe it. No wonder, since Kojima was always known as a big fan of watching movies. Donald Anderson, the future head of DARPA in the series, call sign SIGINT, will give you info and advice on the various weapons and tools in the game. Eva, one of the double agents and femme fatale, can also be called via radio, though she will be unavailable at certain times due to her playing two roles in the game. She is ordered to support Snake with information and is an agent of the Khrushchev regime, currently in power in the USSR and at odds with GRU, another faction in the Soviet Union, one of which Volgin is a member of. She will constantly try to charm Snake unsuccessfully, and Snake will be suspicious of her throughout most of the game, though she proves to be a useful ally even if she has ulterior motives. Sokolavi is the classic cowardly scientist, a resident punching bag just wanting to flee developing weapons and return to his family, initially at least. Ocelot is one of the most interesting characters, not just in this game, but the entire Metal Gear franchise. A young major in this game, commanding a unit of his own, he loves showmanship above all else, and over time develops respect and admiration for his enemy, Snake, with some pretty big twists regarding him at the end of the game. The members of the Cobra unit are pretty undeveloped and they get little screen time, mostly for their boss fights. They mostly yell out their assigned name during cutscenes, but are interesting to fight against at least. The boss is an exception of the Cobra unit, of course. Volgin is a colonel in the Soviet army, a member of the GRU faction, and fueled by Soviet ideology. He is looking to mass-produce Shagohods and distribute them throughout the world to poorer countries that oppose the West, all the while placing himself at the top of the power pyramid. He is willing to do anything to achieve his goals, including nuking his own country and people with a tactical nuke, as shown at the end of the Virtuous mission. The boss is arguably the most interesting character of the game. Right off the bat, she poses questions such as what does it mean to be a soldier, and should a soldier slavishly obey all the commands he is given, or use his head a bit. Also, she questions the role and definition of enemies in geopolitical terms, and postulates that there is no such thing as an eternal enemy, and that who the enemy is to a certain country and people changes with the times. Her role is completely unveiled at the end of the game, providing fuel for the events in the Metal Gear franchise for all the other games, and makes her a tragic and a very interesting character. Another thing that includes the game's characters are the radio calls, which are also accessible via quick menu in this game. As is tradition in the Metal Gear franchise, these conversations include a wide variety of topics, ranging from info on Snake's weapons and tools provided by SIGINT, to info on the local flora and fauna provided by Paramedic, or getting her to talk about various movies when saving. The topics discussed can be more serious and goofy and odd, and both of these types of topics have a place in the game. Another thing I want to mention is that the Dream section when Snake is in prison is vastly updated, and Platinum Games were hired to tackle this part. All I will say is when Snake ends up in a jail cell, save the game and then load it. You'll see. I will now talk about the music and sounds of the game. Music is pretty much scarce and serves mostly as a way to highlight certain story beats rather than being present often. It can also be used to highlight certain gameplay sections. This includes the music in the alert and caution phase, whenever you alert enemies, and like I said, the music serves as an accompanying effect to the atmosphere in gameplay. The legendary Snake Eater song is here too, though re-recorded and slightly altered in this game. I think the original is better in my honest opinion. This one is still good though, especially in the echoey ladder section of the game.
With darkness and silence through the night, what a thrill. I'm searching and I'll melt into you. What a fear in my heart, but you're so supreme.
The sound of weapons is decent, nothing too much to say there honestly. Voice acting is great, the veteran David Hayter voicing Snake. Other voice actors also do a fine job with their work, selling the characters pretty well, and I cannot think of a character that stood out because of poor voice acting. Keep in mind that all voiceovers remain exactly the same and are lifted straight out of the original. No complaints in that department. While I already presented the initial story beats, I will now talk a bit more about the story without spoiling anything. And I must say that the stories in Metal Gear games were always high on the priority list of Kojima and his team, resulting in some interesting stories. Metal Gear Delta is no exception. While initially this may appear as a classic story of evil Soviets want to conquer the world and the West coming in to save the world with righteous fury and power, it does evolve into something more realistic and nuanced, combined with interesting, well-voiced characters that drive the plot forward. The pacing of the story is also good, without much fluff. Overall, pretty good. The game also has a fair bit of replay value. Upon completion, you will receive a rank according to some stats in the game, like how many enemies you killed or how many times an alert was raised. You can start New Game Plus, which will carry over all the uniforms you unlocked, as well as some weapons and items you unlock after clearing the game, and meeting certain conditions upon game completion. A secret theater is unlocked too, which features some cutscenes from the game with certain unusual characters in funny and odd situations. You will need to shake down certain soldiers on your second playthrough, who carry a film reel to unlock these animations. A demo theater is also available, in which you can watch all cutscenes from the game, wearing any uniform or face paint you want in these cutscenes, which can result in some funny situations to be sure. Snake vs. Monkey is a game mode that is also available and features monkeys from the Ape Escape games roaming about a few different level areas from the game, which Snake is ordered by Colonel Campbell, no less, to capture. To say that this mode of the game is funny would be an understatement. And even at the very start, when Snake is briefed on the mission via the radio, the conversation is full of humor and neat references to other games and characters from games that have a similar premise to Metal Gear. Each monkey-infested level also features an astrobot that will net you a golden banana cap as a reward when you capture them in each level. While this mode is over pretty quickly and offers little in the way of rewards, it is the most humorous part of the game. And although goofy and unserious, it doesn't clash with the game at all but adds to it. As far as difficulty goes, there are multiple difficulty levels. Yeah, no shit. And I played on normal difficulty. The game was not too challenging, though I did die a few times. Playing on hard or extreme difficulties will present a significantly more challenging experience. While I tried to evade as much online discussion on this game before playing it as possible, I have heard that it has performance issues. I played the game on the base PlayStation 5 on performance mode, which I do in any game that offers that choice. I am happy to report that I saw the performance drop only a few times, and the most egregious example was toward the end of the game in one section. Now, here are some of the things that I didn't like about the game. Like I already said, Snake can be a bit clunky to control, less so than in the original if you use the updated commands. The cover system also is too sticky and can lead to annoying moments in the game. In certain boss fights where I struggled a bit, mostly the final boss fight, it was annoying to go into menus pretty often to heal inflicted injuries, and this hasn't changed from the original. But that's pretty much it. Okay, let's summarize. The game has a pretty good, nuanced story with well-voiced and interesting characters. Some characters are less developed, like the Cobra unit, like I already said. The graphics are good looking with amazing attention to details, apparent in uniforms and face camos, Snake's wounds, getting muddy when moving in mud, leaves sticking and falling off Snake when he gets up, and the like. The details are also present in gameplay in various ways, like destroying food storages to force the enemy to go hungry, or destroying a chopper to prevent it from appearing later. Most boss fights have interesting ways to be conquered, especially if you are going the non-lethal route. Combat is somewhat basic, but does have some ways to influence it to your favor, like destroying radios on guards to prevent them from calling backup. Sections where combat is unavoidable are fun to partake in and provide a nice change of pace from sneaking around. What helps combat is the weapon variety. Replayability is one of the game's strengths too, because you have ranks, items, uniforms, and other things to unlock that require more than one playthrough, combined with multiple difficulty levels that can provide extra challenge. For comic relief, there is the snake vs. monkey mode. The radio is a source of entertainment too, leading to some interesting topics to be discussed, while also providing useful gameplay info. Now, some of the downsides are, like I said, Snake can be clunky to control even with updated, more modern commands. The cover system is sticky and Snake will, often enough, stick behind cover when you don't want him to annoy you a bit. Going into the cure menu and healing injuries with medical supplies can be annoying in boss fights that are a bit harder, for example, where you might sustain injuries often. I would have appreciated if they sped up the process a bit somehow. But I think that's about all I have to say on this game. Now, should you buy this remake if you already played the original? No, not necessarily. Maybe wait for a sale or buy a used physical copy for a reduced price. However, if you never played the game and are interested, definitely buy Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater. I think Konami did a pretty good job with this one, and although I would appreciate some more quality of life changes, I think this game hits the mark. I give Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater a 9 out of 10, a great game. Okay guys, that's gonna be it for this video. If you like it, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, give it a thumbs down. Let me know down in the comments below, what do you think of this game? Do you agree with my general opinion on it? Okay, until next time. See ya.